everyone. To the Isn't It Romantic Book Club. We are live streaming today into all sorts of places. You're most likely watching us on YouTube if you're watching us live, but we will be beaming into my page and Diana's and Sharon's and Jennie's, and eventually this will end up in our Isn't It Romantic Book Club group too, recording of this. So welcome to everyone. I'm Abbie Roads, if you haven't met me. Oh, wait a minute. I totally forgot the most important thing. Hey, we're talking today about When We Were Widows by Annette Chavez Macias. And like we were literally just talking before we got on here about how good this book was. So, okay. I mean, just among us, we were talking about how good it is. So if you haven't read it yet, go out, grab it, because it really is very, very good. So we are talking about that today, but let me tell you who I am. I'm Abbie Roads. I write dark romantic thrillers. I tell people, think of like an episode of Criminal Minds meets a love story with a twist. Here's a little stack of books I have. Here it is, Dangerous Dreams and Broken Dreams, Shattered Dreams, and then there's Defying Evil and Capturing Fate. And those are all available right now if you want to get them. So who's next?
Jennie.
Me. Hi, everybody. Sorry, I'm having a few technical difficulties, so I had to pop out and pop back in. Like a Christmas surprise.
Oh, really, isn't it?
Oh, no.
Usually it's me.
Yeah.
I know. It's true. Jennie?
I know. Can you guys hear me like swearing on the backside? Sorry about that.
No.
Okay.
No.
I write small town stories with humor and heart. I write cozy mysteries, the Page Turner series, my newest cozy mystery, Kill or Be Killed. I write hot cowboys. I write hockey playing cowboys. So I have hockey rom-coms. Here's my 2 Christmas cowboys. If you're looking for a Christmas holiday read and want to get yourself a cowboy for Christmas, Wish Upon a Cowboy and A Cowboy Country Christmas are just guaranteed great holiday reads. And my newest series is the Lassiter Ranch books. And Save the Date for a Cowboy is actually a finalist in the Aspen Gold. So
That's awesome.
this weekend, how that goes. Yeah.
I love those covers too, Jennie. Those covers are just pretty covers.
I love them.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And Love at First Cowboy was a Holt Medallion winner this year. So this is an award-winning series.
Yeah.
So anyway, happy to be here. I'm a Christmas baby. I love Christmas, and I loved this book. So I'm excited to be here.
Well, that's great, Jennie. I'm so excited for you. You'll have to let us know how it goes this weekend. It's really exciting. My name is Diana Muñoz Stewart. I write romantic suspense for the strong of heart. My first series, Spy Makers Guild, here are the lovely, beautiful covers. They're also colorful, is out and complete now. I have a standalone. It's All in the Hips. That is also out. It's a fun. They're all kind of a little bit of a mystery, a little bit of action adventure in there. And my latest series, Broken Promises, the second book, Fatal Promises, is coming out on January 28th of 2025. So I'm super excited about that.
I can't wait to read that one.
Oh, well, I'm excited to share it with you guys. It turned out, well, I mean, I just wrote everyone that it was supposed to be a novella, but it turned into a novel. So I got a full novel from it now. So yeah, so that's exciting. But yes, I'm excited now to be here and to talk to Annette about this wonderful book.
Yeah, I can't wait. My name is Sharon Wray. I write romantic suspense. Think like Dan Brown type mysteries with lots of sexy action with ex-Green Berets. Diana, this was my novella.
That's what Sharon does.
We can't seem to get it right, Sharon.
I also write contemporary romance, and I just want to say I'm in this huge anthology called Light My Fire, but 100% of the proceeds are going to Wounded Warrior Project, to their suicide prevention.
Nice.
So yes, this is available right now. I'll actually drop. There's a link in the group, but I'll drop a link again because this is. I mean, it's with a lot of friends, and we're just really hoping, to generate some income that goes directly to the group. And just for you, so I'm in charge of watching the Facebook group today. So if I'm looking down at my phone, I'm actually working during the live stream. Okay, so we are so happy to talk to Annette Chavez Macias today. She writes stories about love, family, and following your dreams. She's proud of her Mexican American heritage, culture, and traditions, all of which can be found within the pages of her books. For readers wanting even more love stories and guaranteed happily ever afters, Annette also writes romance novels under the pen name Sabrina Soul. A Southern California native, Annette lives just outside Los Angeles with her husband, 3 children, and her 4 dogs. I just want to say again, I absolutely loved When We Were Widows. It was just, I read it in one night. Like I couldn't put it down. So thrilled that she's here today.
Welcome.
Hi,
Welcome.
Annette.
We're so glad to have you here. Hi.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, we just love this story so much. Like, all of us were chatting about, and we have so many questions for you. But in order to kind of initiate everyone who's here, who will see this later, you want to tell us a little bit about the story and what it's about?
Sure. So this is a women's fiction novel about 3 generations of Mexican American women who all happen to be widows. So it's the grandmother, the mother, and the daughter. And they're all forced to live together again under the same roof and basically deal with the secrets that they've been keeping from each other in order to kind of mend their relationships.
I love it. Wow, you got that down, lady.
Yeah, I'm usually, if you ask me what my book's about, like, I don't know. What'd you think?
Stumbling. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I've been talking about it for a couple of weeks now, so yeah, I've kind of got the elevator speech already.
Oh, that's cool. How did you
That
come
was
up with
wonderful.
this idea? Because I feel like you so perfectly interwove these 3 generations. And I'd mentioned to her before we started the live that like there's just so much history to each character, but it doesn't feel like backstory. It's like so like, oh wow, like you're so excited to read all of it. Like I just feel like you were gifted. I don't know what you did, but there's like a magic in being able to do that.
Oh,
So,
thank you.
yeah. So tell us how you like figured out how to weave all these 3 generations and their stories together. Like that just seems very intricate to me. Like, are you a plotter or a pantser or?
I'm definitely a plotter. So I start with an outline. And I'm also the type of writer who doesn't write chronologically. So I don't write like chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. I kind of just write all over the place. And then towards the end, then that's when I'm trying to string everything together. So I think in a way that kind of helps me go back, and kind of weave in different things. So, the ending makes sense, or, that there's these little nuggets that are hinted at in the beginning, and then you find out more, as the book goes on. But I really think for me, when I'm working on these women's fiction books, I'm definitely influenced by my upbringing. I come from a very big, extended Mexican American family. And so I grew up with my great-grandmother, with my grandmother. And so we had very strong matriarchs in our family. And so for me, when I'm telling stories about families, I have to include, the older generation, because that's what I'm familiar with, and that's what I know. And so when I was thinking of this story, I'm not a widow, but my great-grandmother became a widow when she was in her 30s. My grandmother became a widow in her 80s. And then my mom became a widow in her 70s. And so even though they weren't widows at the same time, I definitely can see how that experience shaped them, or continues to shape my mom, especially. And also how I think they learned from each other on how to deal with the loss, and also how it kind of shaped how they became mothers, or, you know, the relationships with their children, I think. So when I was thinking of that idea, I just thought, well, what if all these widows had to come together and kind of just, you know, deal with these secrets and deal with these tragedies, in order for them to kind of heal themselves and then heal their relationships with each other.
Wow. I don't know if you probably don't know this, and probably 90% of the people who are watching probably don't know this, but I'm a mental health counselor. And so I really loved like the grief group aspect of this too. And I just felt like how real that was. You know what I mean? Like that was just spot on realism, you know,
great. Thank you.
For grief, and for the grief group, and speaking of grief group, Oscar, the drummer grief group guy, was pretty hot, you know. So
what I loved about it was that it was about grief, but it didn't feel sad.
Right.
You know what I mean? And you dealt with it, and there was so much healing in the book, but I felt the grief, and you felt the empathy for the women, but I wasn't sad throughout the book. And I don't know how you did that, but there was just a sense of hope from the first line of that book all the way to the end, that you knew it was all going to be okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you did it. I don't know how you did it. It was wonderful.
Yeah, it was magic. I agree. It was
magic.
Magic. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you.
Annette,
So did you do a lot of research on grief, or?
Not so much research, but as I mentioned before, I'm not a widow, but I definitely have experienced
grief therapy.
Yeah, definitely have experienced grief in my life, and in my own, you know, experience in trying to deal with that, I have read a lot. So I haven't gone to like an actual support group, but I definitely seek out articles about grief, and I'm very interested in learning techniques, or how that journey shapes you, and how it's never ending, you know, like you just don't wake up one day and it's gone. So that's always something that has interested me in exploring.
Have you been to a rage and smash room? Because that sounded great.
I know, we need to plan a group trip to one of those. Doesn't that sound amazing?
Awesome.
I have not, but there is one that just opened up by my house, and that's why I was interested in it. And so I did look up, you know, some other places that had been open for a while already, and, you know, checked out some videos of what goes on there. And I need to do that, definitely.
I truly think we should plan like a group trip there, because that just sounds amazing.
Annette, how did you decide? Like, I love how you had the alternating POVs between the mother and the daughter, between Anna and Jessica. Why did you decide not to add in the grandmother's POV? Because I'm glad you didn't, because it was such a great story, but a part of me is like, ooh, I would love to know what she had to say about all of this from her point of view.
You know, it's interesting, because when I originally pitched the book, and when I was beginning to write it, it was my intention to have 3 POVs. So like my first women's fiction novel, Big Chicas Don't Cry, there's 4. And so and then my next book is just 1. And so I thought, okay, well, I'll do multiple POVs again, because I have 3 main characters. But I don't know what it was. But as I was writing it, when it came to Mama Melda's chapters, I was just stuck, and I couldn't find her voice. Even though I knew her story, I knew the secret that she had, and I knew what I wanted for her to go through. Every time I tried to write her, I couldn't. And so I talked it over with my agent and my editor, and they're like, well, why do you need 3? Why don't you just do 2? And so for me, it was kind of like the permission I needed to kind of, yes, Mama Melda is a main character, but her voice comes through, I think, in her relationship with the other two characters. And so for me, I wanted her to be more like an all-knowing character. And so I wanted her to interact and learn different things about her daughter and her granddaughter. But at the same time, I think maybe, when you have a grandmother, they are kind of a mystery, because they're very tight-lipped about their experiences, at least in my family, they are. So as I started working on the book that way, then it became, I could see her character coming out in the conversations that she was having, rather than just having her point of view, if that makes sense.
So I have a question about that, Annette, and I apologize for popping out for a minute. I had told the girls, we got my husband a smoker for Christmas, and so this barbecue grill just arrived exactly. The truck pulled up right as we started, so I had to pop out and get our new barbecue smoker pit, whatever it's called. But so we're going to be smoking a ham for Christmas this year, which will be exciting. So my question kind of follows along with that. And I haven't ever written a dual POV like this. Do you kind of try to write all of one person's and then figure out where to split it up? Or do you just follow along the story and just pop back and forth?
I pop back and forth. So I think that helps. So it helps that I'm the type of writer anyways, who can pop back and forth and, write the right ending chapters even before beginning chapters. So I knew as an outliner, as a plotter, I knew what I plotted each character's journey. And I knew, for example, okay, I need a scene where Jessica and Mama Melda are going to talk about her relationship with her mother. I need a scene where Anna and Jessica are going to talk about what happened with her dad. And so I write those scenes, and then later on, as I'm starting to connect everything, I can see where the holes are. And then I can see, I need another Jessica scene. I need another Anna scene. And so that's how it starts to come together.
How long does it normally take you to do a book?
Oh, it depends.
To write a book.
It depends. I like to think that I'm a quick writer, that I'm a fast writer, fast drafter. But I think this book, I think I want to say from first words to, when I turned in the first draft, it was probably maybe 4 months, maybe.
Oh, that's not bad.
Not bad. 4 months. But it was very raw, and I'm fortunate that, my editor is okay with that. And she knows that as we go through the developmental edits is when I'll start to layer in everything, and I'll start to build on the word count. For me, it's more about just getting the story out of my head. And, if that's only 50,000 words, and that's only 50,000 words, and then I'll add on the words at the end through edits.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things about this story was, the relationships between the women and how they misunderstand each other. They make assumptions about different things. And I love the scene with Anna when she comes and she finds her mother has this bag hidden. I just got chills just thinking about that. Could you tell us a little bit about that scene? And so I'd love the people watching to know more about it.
So I think this goes also back to one of the reasons why Mama Melda didn't have a point of view. Because I wanted, that that Anna and Jessica have their secrets, but you're not sure until that scene what Mama Melda's is. And so for me, when I was, I, as a Latina and as a Mexican American writer, I kind of, struggle to find this balance when I'm writing books to entertain and also educate. And so I knew about the history of Chavez Ravine. I found out about it when I was an adult. I'm from Southern California, and I didn't know what had happened until I was an adult. So I knew that was something that was not well known, but it was a very important part of not only LA history, but Mexican American history. And so as I was writing this book, I think there might have been, I think there was some talk recently about, or when I was writing the book, about how these families were going to get reparations from the city, or they're trying to. And so I thought, well, I thought about Mama Melda's age, and I knew that, she was born in Southern California. And when I worked it out, I'm like, she would have been a little girl when this happened. Well, what if she was a little girl that this happened to? And so from then I knew that was going to be Mama Melda's secret. And so I wanted to find a way for it to be known to the reader. And I think by showing how it still affected her to, she's this 80-something-year-old who's still afraid that she's going to lose her home. I think for me, it was I just wanted to show that fear without having to fully go into the history of what happened to her, because I knew that was going to come later in the book.
And when you think about the fear of something that happened to her when she was a child, and then she's 80 some years old and having that same fear, I just feel like that's the human psyche. That's how we are built as human beings, like those traumas just stick, I think you just did a really great job with that whole thing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Annette, my father was born in Manhattan, and he was a huge baseball fan. He died a long time ago. He was a huge baseball fan. And I can remember being a little girl, and he had New York Giants football tickets, and then learning that he had once had tickets to the Mets, to the Dodgers, to the Yankees. Like, he was a huge, and I asked him, I said, why don't you have baseball tickets anymore? And he said, oh, because something really terrible happened. And he refused to go to any more professional baseball games. And it was because of what happened in Southern California.
Oh, wow.
And as a child, I didn't really understand. But when I asked my mother about this just 2 days ago after reading the book, and she said, yes, that's exactly, he was older when he realized what had happened. But he and a bunch of friends, they just stopped supporting the National Football Leagues. The National Baseball Leagues, because of what was allowed to happen in Southern California with this stadium.
Wow.
And yeah, I had no idea. I just knew he just stopped going, or he had told us he used to have tickets and stopped going, but he was an avid football fan too.
Yeah.
So apparently it was I had no idea.
This is an example of how fiction teaches us real life things, because that's a story I had never heard either. And how many people, like, until they read this book, will hear that story? I just think that's wonderful.
Yeah, I'm not going into it too much because I don't want to spoil the book. But that event,
my first editor at the first publishing house that I wrote for, they always said that they wanted us to put one thing in our books that taught someone something, whether it was something small like, taught them how to fillet a steak, or, I don't know, it could be 3 lines of something that's new and different, but to teach someone something in a book. So when they left the book, they were like, gosh, I never knew about that. Or I know what saffron is now, or, I don't know what it would be, but
Jennie, right? You had all those little bits of information about the bees in your beekeeping.
Yeah. So I try to do that, but I really thought that, you did a really good job with that because I'm a Colorado girl. I'm from the Midwest. I didn't know anything about that. So I thought that was really interesting. And you did a great job of teaching without like letting us know that you were teaching us something,
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, I also love the fact that there was 2 love stories in this.
Oh, I loved that too. I loved the mom's love story so much.
I know. Isn't that the sweetest thing ever?
Well, because women's fiction back in the day didn't have as much love as there is now. Maybe because more romance writers are moving into women's fiction. I really appreciate. I love it. So I love, and both love stories. Again, I don't want to give too much away for those who haven't read it, but they were both handled in such different ways, but so beautifully for the age of the heroines and the heroes, right? And
well, and let me just say, Oscar, who's Jessica's love interest, he's a drummer and a grief group leader. I'm just saying, how can you get more perfect?
Oh, thank you. Well, I did get my start as a romance author, and I still write romance. So I think, I can not sprinkle in some romance in these books, even though, they're more, like the B-side of the book. But I definitely like to tell those types of stories as well.
Now, Annette, whenever I write a book that has a mom or like a mother character in it, especially if I have them do something that's not very great, my mom is always like, was that about me? Was that about me? I'm wondering if any of your family members were like, is that my personality? Or did you incorporate any of your mother, grandmother personalities into those women?
Probably a little bit, in that, my grandmother, passed away a few years ago. She was very, like tell it like it is type, and she was all about not showing emotion, which she learned from her mother, my great grandmother, who was the one who became a widow, in her 30s. So I definitely could, some of their personality and characteristics were inspired by that, I think. But I did have to give a disclaimer to my mom when I gave her the book to read, to let her know that this was not about her specifically, and the way Jessica felt about Anna is not the way I feel about her. That so yes, I did have to, warn her before she read the book. And she read it and she loved it. And I think my aunt also read it. And for her, it resonated more, not so much the mother-daughter relationship, but losing her father. And so I think, different people are going to just take away different pieces, I think, from the book. And so I'm just happy that people are enjoying it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well,
go ahead, Diana.
All right, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, I was going to say that there is so much like intelligence and so much backstory in this novel. So, I mean, did you go back and put that in as you were editing? Is that when you added all those detail? I mean, it was just so so much of it. It was great.
You mean as far as like the character's backstory, or
the character's backstory, right?
Yeah, I think when I first started writing it, I mean, I always knew, that Anna was going to be the mother who is who shows her affection by doing things, by cooking, by thinking that she's being the perfect mom because she's sacrificing for her kids. And then I always knew that Jessica was going to be the daughter who was career oriented and kind of wanted to be independent of her mother and not become her mother, which is, I think, something that's, universal for most daughters. But yeah, as I'm writing it, though, yes, it does. It comes through as I'm writing. Like, for example, towards the end, when Jessica is telling the story about the first time she went to the beach and why she purposely wanted to live in Santa Monica, that didn't come until I was already writing the book, because I needed to show, even though I think I had already, you could tell that Jessica was a daddy's girl. Because of the chapter before that, you see that kind of image, or what she had always thought about her father, destroyed. I wanted to show something different for her and a different memory. And so that came out as I was writing it.
Okay. Yeah.
And I have a question for you. I have a question, but first I have to say that I love your Christmas nails. I keep seeing them.
Oh, thank you. Yes. I got them done yesterday.
So I noticed them. They look really cool. So a lot of our readers, often they are always interested about the writer process. And you've told us a lot about kind of your process and your research behind this book, but tell us a little bit about kind of your everyday process. How many years have you been writing? Like, what's your everyday? Do you try to write every day? Do you have a word count goal? Are you morning, late night owl? Like, tell us a little bit about your writing process.
Tacking on to what Jennie said, though, real quick. Also tell us how you got into being a writer. Like, let's give us the whole thing. Like, how did you get to be a writer, and like the whole gamut of this?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, well, I'll start with my writing journey. I always wanted to be a writer. I always wanted to be an author, as far back as I can remember, because I was a big reader. And I definitely attribute that to my mom. She still is actually a big romance reader. And so we had Harlequins and Silhouettes all over our house. She had that monthly subscription box. And so when I would finish reading my books, then I would start on her books. And I'm sure that's why, my roots are in romance. So, I was a kid who loved English classes because we would get to write essays, creative essays. And, I think I would just tell, whoever asked me, yeah, when I grow up, I want to be a writer. But, life happens and you get kind of detoured. There's detours along the way. And so I ended up becoming a newspaper reporter and an editor right after college. So I was writing, but, I was writing other people's stories. And then once I started having my family, I needed something more 9 to 5. So I got into PR and corporate communications. So again, still writing. I was, writing press releases and writing brochures, things like that. And it wasn't until I was going to turn 40 that I kind of had this midlife crisis, I guess you could call it. And I started to think, whatever happened to that dream of becoming a writer. And so I had a story in my head, but I had no idea what it meant to write a book. I had to Google how many words does a book have to be. And I would write little things because I would have scenes in my head, but I had no idea about craft or even how to get a book published. And so luckily I had kept in contact with a woman who I had gone to college with, and we were friends on Facebook, and she would be posting, like she got an agent or her next book was going to come out. And so I knew she was an author. And so I just reached out to her and I asked her, what do I do? And so she wrote back and she gave me this long list of things to do. And one of them was, why don't you come to my group? And she belonged to a romance writers group that was part of the national chapter, and it was local. And so I did. I went to one of their meetings, and I was instantly, you know, like, oh my God, these people are like me. And it was everything I had ever, everything I was looking for. You know, there's probably 100 people in the room that I went into, mainly women, and some of them are already published, but most of them were trying to get published. And so it was through her that I started to learn about craft, and I actually got my first contract with one of her publishers because she had told me about them and said, you know, they're looking for writers, and it was going to be a novella. I mean, a short story, and the world was already built. They had like this continuing series. They just wanted people to write stories to go into the series. And that was my first contract. And so that's how I got started in romance. And that short story was published in 2012. And so I continued.
Okay, Annette, I have to stop you for 1 second.
Yeah.
Our stories are so similar.
Really?
I always wanted to write a book. I turned 40. I decided to write a book. I learned about RWA. I joined Romance Writers of America. I found my people. And my first book was published in 2012.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Hey, guess what? Mine's a little similar too, except I was 35 and mine wasn't published until 2016. So.
Yeah, how funny.
If you heard me do a little laugh, I wasn't laughing at your story. I was laughing because I was like, oh my gosh, 40 years old, midlife crisis, always wanted to write a book, learn craft, joined, and then you're like, then I joined RWA. I was like, oh my gosh, found my people, and then 2012. So anyway, continue, please, my twin sister. My writing soul sister here.
That is so funny. But you know what? I've heard a lot of stories that, you know, that especially romance writers that, you know, they were always wanting to write a book and they were reading romance, and it's kind of funny how we're all so connected.
I'm curious if men's journey is like this, like life happens, so we don't do it until we're like 35, or do men just like decide right out of school they're going to be a writer and do it? Like,
well, you know what I've heard, Abbie, is I've heard that it's completely one thing that's really unique about Romancelandia and the world of romance writers, because it is women, is that they're really great at sharing and building each other up. And helping, you know, lift the next person and sharing, hey, this worked for me. Whereas I've heard that men writers, and obviously not all of them, because Stephen King is like so great at helping everyone, but I've heard that men writers are much more like close to the vest, and I don't want to share my, you know, I learned a secret. I don't necessarily want to. So I've heard that.
I saw John Grisham interview Ina Garten at the Kennedy Center just 2 weeks ago. She's doing a tour for her memoir. I don't want to derail the conversation, but they mentioned that because she said, I'm tired of talking about my memoir. Let's talk about you, John. And he's like, I don't want to talk about it. And because they were talking about their writing journeys, which were both extraordinary and filled with lucky breaks and odd coincidences and synchronicities. But they both said the same thing. If they had to do it over, they'd write in romance, because the romance writers were so wonderful. And
that is great.
Yeah, even now, even though I like I said, I still write romance, you know, but now I'm really focusing on my women's fiction book, but it's my romance writer friends that I turn to still, you know, to get advice and share. And because I can't find that type of community in like general fiction space. So I started writing romance books, but I still had that story in my head that still would not go away. and I would work on it here and there. And then obviously, as I wrote more romance books, I could see, what the issues were with the book that I was writing. And then also because I was now a member of Romancelandia, and, in the network of, I could see how publishing was going. I knew that the book that I was working on was not a romance because of the happily ever after requirement. So I knew that I needed to look for different publishers, and that this book that I had in my head was going to need an agent in order for me to target these publishers. And so I found out about a contest, but you needed a finished manuscript in order to enter. And so that was really what motivated me to finally finish the book, which I did, and I submitted it, and I didn't become a finalist, but one of the judges emailed me and told me how much she loved the book and would I accept some of her feedback, even though I wasn't a finalist. And I'm like, of course. And so because of her, I felt more encouraged to try and get the book published. And I still don't know exactly how many, like maybe it was like a year, maybe a year and a half, where I was submitting and getting rejections until another contest came up on Twitter. It was called DV Pit. And it's this contest where you would pitch your book on this specific date, and agents and editors, if they liked the pitch, which was in the form of a tweet, then you were invited to submit a couple of chapters, whatever. And that's actually how I got my agent for my first women's fiction book, which ended up becoming Big Chicas Don't Cry. And so that came out in 2020. So the question before about how long does it take you to write a book? Big Chicas Don't Cry probably took me 10 years to write.
Wow. It's over there. I have it up there on my shelf.
Just because, I didn't work on it all the time. And I think for me, that story was very personal, even though it's fiction, it's a very personal story. And I also think, that was a story probably I couldn't write until I had gone through some stuff. Mm-hmm. So it all worked out in the end. But as far as my writing process, I'm a huge procrastinator. I am not.
Sister. I was just thinking the same thing. Oh my gosh.
Me too.
I need a deadline, or else I don't write. So I'm not the type of person that can write every day. You give me 6 months to write a book. For 4 months or 3 months, I'm probably going to be just thinking about the book. And then I'll be writing, like a crazy woman.
Are you writing up until midnight on the deadline date?
Yes. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. I actually have a book due today. And
oh my God.
I actually have a book due today, and I'm already thinking, I think I have until 11:59 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to turn in this book.
Oh, we could have picked another date in that.
Oh no, that's. I'm in edits right now, so I have edits due. Edits due. The book was already been turned in. Yes, so I have edits due.
But I did want to say the other thing I absolutely loved about the book. It flowed so beautifully, but I did not see this coming. I didn't see. Again, I don't want to give anything away. I did not see Jessica at the very end finding the pregnant barista. I didn't see it.
Oh, yeah.
I was iffy about it. I'm like, I don't think this is going to work out. I'm reading it. Like, I don't know. I don't think this is going to work. And it worked beautifully. It was a beautiful way to end that story thread, I thought.
Yeah, that scene, that was one of the last scenes that I wrote, because I kept going back and forth about whether or not there should be, that there should even be like a confrontation. Mm-hmm. But the more I wrote, I realized that was something that she was going to have to face. And that was a huge part of her secret, So it needed to come out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
showed-
didn't believe it until it was after it was over. I'm like, well, okay. So I was very anxious the whole time, but it was great. I thought it was a beautiful way to end the book.
Thank
But
you.
again, I'm trying not to give too many spoilers away.
You know, what's this is a small thing, but I really liked Jessica's name. I'd never heard that name before. I've heard Jessica, but not Jessica. And I was like, oh, I just loved that. It just seemed beautiful to me. Like, just what a beautiful name for her.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I don't know where I got that name from. I know I'm sure I've heard it, but when I was, getting ready to do the pitch for the book, that was just the name it kept coming into my head. And I even thought, oh, I'll change it later. No, I didn't.
Good. And don't you love those magic moments when you're a writer where those things just happen and there's no rhyme or reason and they're just like in your head and that's what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
I love
So,
it.
Annette, Sharon and I have both shared our favorite scenes in the book. So I have to ask you, what was your favorite scene?
Oh, that's hard.
Sorry.
I know. I think for me, there's one that was fun to write. And so that's favorite in my way, in a way. And that would be when Jessica meets Oscar, not knowing that that's Oscar. That was fun.
That was good. And a man that can dance.
Dance and play drums.
And play drums and be a grief group counselor. I mean,
Yes.
I'm just could he be more perfect?
It was very romantic. I loved his gentle persistence.
Mhm.
Like, she was working through a lot. He knew she was working through a lot, not just grief, but all these other things going on.
Yeah.
And he just was like, okay, it'll take as long as it takes. And I liked that. Like, as the reader, I felt safe. Like, oh, okay, it's going to work out.
Those are good words. Those are good words for it, though, Sharon. Gentle persistence. I mean, you must be a writer or something.
It must be romance. No, but I liked it. I liked it because I felt like there were so many little secrets coming out, and that always keeps a reader kind of unsteady, right? Like, but yet I trusted Annette that everything would be okay because of certain things, like that first paragraph in the very first chapter. There was something about it. I knew I was in the hands of an author that would take me on a ride, but would give me a safe landing, right? And I felt that way very much. With Oscar, I really felt, and even Lucas, I'm like, okay, there is going to be a romance. They are going to have a happily ever after. I might not see it all unfold on the page, but as long as I know these women are going to have happy lives with no secrets, good family ties and men who love them, I'm good.
It's the happily ever after.
Mhm.
I mean, this may not be like labeled a romance novel, but we still got happily ever after, which is what we love,
Yes. Yeah.
Was there any question in the writing of this book, like with the editor, of how to handle the romance, like too much romance, not enough romance? I know some women's fiction authors deal with that, but some editors want them to pull back on the romance.
No, I think I don't remember any, like it's too much. Actually, the publisher is Montlake, which is an imprint of Amazon Publishing, and they're actually the romance imprint. And so my editor is very romance. She's a romance cheerleader, I guess I would say. So I think for her, I didn't even think that, oh, she's going to say, why are both of them getting, I'd never had that worry with that at all. And honestly, when I was when I first thought about the book, I did not think of that both were going to get a romance subplot. I figured Jessica would, because she was, obviously But she was also the newer widow. So then I was like, I don't know, is that too much? So, but then as I was writing Anna's story, I was like, oh no, she deserves a happily ever after.
Oh, she definitely deserved happily.
Yeah.
Jessica did, but I think Anna did even more. So
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
Sure.
I love there was that scene where Mama Milda really tore into Jessica. Like, I just love that. Like, after that dinner party where she kind of made a kind of an offhanded remark to her mother that wasn't kind. I loved later on how the grandmother stood up for her daughter. Because I kind of felt like in the beginning, I didn't know how the grandmother felt about her own daughter. Like there was that tension there between them. And I liked that scene because it made me realize she's there's something going on that the grandmother knows about that she doesn't feel like she can fix, but it's going to try to protect her daughter, even at the expense of losing her granddaughter. I really liked that. I don't know if you meant to do that, but that's what it came through in the pages, and I really loved it.
Yeah, I wanted Mama Melda to be, even though she doesn't maybe say I love you, or in Anna's point of view, you find out how after Mama Melda's husband died, that she kind of was all about just surviving, and so she couldn't be the type of mom who played with her children or spoiled her children, but she showed her love basically by taking care of them. And so I think that's always was in her character, was she was the protector. So yeah, I definitely wanted that to come through without having Mama Melda specifically say, I love you.
No, I think you did a beautiful job. I really liked that. And I liked it because it was unexpected. The granddaughter goes home and they're back in the house, and it just kind of came out of the blue that the grandmother confronted her. So anyway, I really enjoyed that part.
Yeah, it was. I enjoyed the book so much. I think we all did. We could all just keep talking about it. I mean, it was fantastic. We loved it.
Thank you.
But as we're running out of time, I wanted to, because Sharon had brought this up and before you had clicked on Sharon, we were talking and Sharon brought this up about the recipes in the back.
Oh yeah.
So we wanted to know a little bit about those recipes.
Yeah. So I think for me, my books, you're always going to find books about a family, a story about a family. And, I'm always going to find opportunity to weave in Mexican American culture and traditions in some way. And one of the ways I do that is through food. So my books will always have food featured in them. And my book before this one that came out, it was called Tu Sin For Adios. That character was actually a chef. And I actually got some feedback like, I wish you would have included the recipes because I have her cooking so many different dishes. So even though these weren't, as I say, like complicated dishes that they cooked together in the book, I just felt like I wanted to just add that in, as a bonus.
I loved seeing it at the end. I was like, oh, the book's not done yet.
Yes. And I actually have, so funny, I had my copy editor actually told me that he tried the recipes and they were very good. So
that's cool.
He was a very thorough copy editor, so he wanted to make sure that.
Wow, that's awesome.
Wow.
Annette, what's the next book? What's your next book coming out?
So I'm currently in edits for my next women's fiction novel, come out in September of next year, and it's called Everything She Never Knew. And it's about a woman whose husband leaves her for her best friend. And so the story is about the breakup of a marriage, but it's also about the breakup of a friendship.
Oh, wow.
Wow. I love that title.
Emotions to write about.
Tearjerker. You're going to make us cry, it sounds like.
Hopefully.
Well, Annette, thank you so much for being here. We had so much fun talking to you. And we are almost out of time. So I am excited to share who we're going to read next month. Do you guys have any final things for Annette before we do that?
Thank you for being here because I love this book.
Thank you so much. And hopefully you'll come back in September with your next one because we would love to read and chat with you again. This was so much fun.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Annette. Okay, you guys, so excited. We have so much fun. We're so glad for the people that were here. We love seeing your comments. We loved reading your comments. We love that you show up. And we also love people that come and watch us afterwards. We're just really thankful for our reader base and the folks that come to watch us and to take part in this fun thing that we do.
Oh,
so
and one thing before you go on though, Jenny.
Sure.
We can see a lot of your comments, but we can't always respond to them because it doesn't tell us where it's coming from. So like we can see your name, but like we don't know which page you're commenting on. So like if we haven't commented, it's just because we don't know which page you're on and we can't get there to comment on it. But
we're using StreamYard through YouTube.
Yes.
Facebook.
So right. So
Facebook posts until after the stream.
Right. So we are totally seeing all of them. Like we can see them as they come in, but like we just can't always comment back. So I just want you to know you are seen and we are literally seeing every single comment that comes in, but we just don't know always where they're coming from to comment back on them. So I just wanted to let y'all know that because you are seen. So
yes, and we love it. We love all the comments.
We do.
We're super happy. So you guys are going to have so much fun this next month with our next author. She's a dear, dear friend of mine, and she writes sports romance. And I haven't read this book yet, but I guarantee there's going to be some crying and some laughing. Like she tugs at your heartstrings. So our new book is called Home Game, and it's by Ginger Scott. And I don't know if you could see Sharon's kind of holding up the cover of the book yet, but man, Ginger does great covers too. So you guys are going to love
that should be fun.
Yeah, her books are really good. I got to read one of them. Like insider stuff I'm probably not even supposed to tell you, but I read one of them for the Ritas one year, and like I gave it like a perfect score. And the Ritas like are like is Romance Writers of America, are published novels. And I read one of Ginger Scott's book and I gave it like a perfect score because it was so incredibly good. And then I read the whole series on my own because it was so amazing. So I am telling you, I don't know what this book is about, but I know you'll love it. I just know you will.
Did you know, Abbie, I was sitting with her at the Ritas.
Were you?
I was sitting with her. Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm. She and I went to that together. So
yep. So
well, I've started it and it's great so far.
You've already started. Sharon's already started.
Yes, like 3 chapters.
Right, so there's like 3 of us endorsing it right now. So.
Yeah, we're already loving it. We're already loving it. Okay, well, thanks so much and happy holidays and Merry Christmas. And we're just so thankful for you guys. So hope you have a great holiday season.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Bye.
Happy New Year.